Let's go back to Thursday night, the scene of the crime. Collingwood absolutely belted from pillar to post. 64 points to Hawthorn, who really are a bogey team for the Pies, but this went to the next level. Craig McRae's two biggest losses as coach have been to the Hawks, but that's not the big issue here. The big issue here is that Collingwood look fundamentally different side to what they did halfway through this season.
Yeah, and I think there's probably no better blueprint for it than to compare it to the same opposition they played in round 12. Yes, Hawthorn are playing different footy to then, but if we look at the scores from turnover, which we're seeing now, in round 12, Collingwood punished the Hawks on turnover. They were up by 42. Then you flip the script, round 22, that's plus 39 in favour of Hawthorn in that game. Then stoppage scores, -9 to Hawks in round 12. Then you go to round 22, and that is a big concern. Plus 30 scores from stoppage, and we're just seeing some of the ways in which they got it done, and constant exits through the front door of the Magpies stoppage, which was genuinely concerning if you were a Magpies fan, because their balance at the midfield has been something that they've been so strong on. Craig McRae touched on it post-match last week against the Lions and said that's where they got absolutely pantsed. They'd tried to focus on it, their balance around stoppage going into this match, and again got completely dominated by the Hawthorn midfield.
Just quickly, for a side that's so dependent on pressure, how big a loss has Beau McCreary and Bobby Hill been over that period?
Yeah, I think obviously forward half pressure is important, and Beau McCreary playing that role where he does come up to stoppage as well. Big losses for their attacking prowess. I don't think the ball was sort of in attacking positions enough on Thursday night for them to actually have had much of an impact. You saw Lachie Schultz on Thursday night. He tried his absolute best to pressure the ball carrier to get up the ground. He still had very little impact on the game. So, yes, they're big losses, but I think defensively and through the midfield are where their concerns are at the moment.
There does seem to be elements of friction as well in this Collingwood side at the moment. And let's have a look at this incident between Jordan De Goey and Jamie Elliott. You can understand it. They've lost 4 of their last 5, but you don't like to see this as a fan or someone at the club.
Yeah, so this is more to highlight what happens after the play. Obviously, system issues was raised by Craig McRae post-match, and that's all over the ground. And you see De Goey is the player that's highlighted there. And as this plays out, you can see Jamie Elliott explaining to him that he doesn't think that's where he's supposed to be. Jordan De Goey thinks that's exactly where he's supposed to be. So it is that system issue that we heard from Craig McRae highlighted post-match against the Lions, post-match against the Hawks as well, highlighted again. So when your system starts to break down, that's when you do have genuine concerns for a football club, because the time in which they have to turn that around now, that's been a couple of weeks in a row, is growing very thin, and they have a very important match against the Adelaide Crows coming up, against a team that's not having any system issues currently in the football club.
Now, you talk about system, but there's been some individuals in particular that have dropped off for this Collingwood side recently. Craig McRae talks about confidence and how a lot of his players aren't following their routine and doing the things that they are when they are confident. These guys have probably been the players that have failed the eye test and failed the stat test as well.
Yeah, I think if we look at just player ratings, 1 to 17 in those rounds when some of these players were flying, having some very good seasons, and then the form drop-off that's occurred between round 18 to round 22. Darcy Moore down there, 78th to 119th. I would argue the man that was down the other end, James Sicily, has almost flipped that around himself and is coming good at the perfect time of year. Crisp has had a few different role changes, playing inside mid versus outside mid. You've got Jamie Elliott, who has really dropped off, and that's probably the ball use coming in. Dan Houston, I think that just highlights how poor his season has been. And again, on Thursday night, we saw him get heaps of the footy early, which was a clear directive to get the ball in his hands, but he just looks like a player with absolutely no confidence. The first thing that goes when you have no confidence is your decision-making. His decision-making poor, and you could say the same for most of the players on the list. Steele Sidebottom is one. I want to see him more inside mid. The first 6 to 7 rounds of the competition, he was talked about, probably on this show between us, about All-Australian contention. Now he's gone back out to play that outside mid-role because of the squeeze, and his ranking has dropped away significantly because of that.